Hello, hey, beautiful people. Welcome to Improve Your English, Improve Your Life. My name is Foster. I am an English teacher and your co-host on this podcast. In this episode, I interview Jackie about a lot of different things. We talk about Jackie's accent from Chicago, her career and her experiences in Brazil. We talk about how going with the flow is so important when you are learning a new language. I had so much fun recording this conversation, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And if you really want to take your English to the next level, you can receive an entire transcript of this conversation with worksheets, homework assignments, tons of notes and resources, and a lot more really useful material on our website, totally for free. So check it out. Okay, here we go. Let's get on with the show. Hello, hey, sweet people. Welcome to Improve Your English, Improve Your Life, a podcast that normally the introduction is done by Jackie, but today the tables are turned and I am interviewing Jackie. My name's Foster, and of course I am here with Jackie. Jackie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Foster. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very interested to have the opportunity to interview you and get to know a little more about you.
Oh, wow. Very exciting. I mean, you have interviewed me before for your guys' podcast, which was really fun. Maybe some new stories will come up today.
Yeah, so I might ask you some questions that are not the traditional, like give us your background questions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should let our listeners know that we don't know each other that well.
Right.
We've never met in person. We are just both English teachers and entrepreneurs that have a lot of things in common, but still a lot of stuff I don't know about you.
That's true. And I think that makes for a better program, because sometimes when I listen to podcasts and people already know each other, they don't think of the questions that I have. Like, no, wait, ask them this, or I don't understand. What's the story about that? So, we're going to discover a lot of things about each other and about all the topics that we talk about, and the listeners will discover as well, along with us.
Excellent. So I think an interesting place for us to start is a question that I have a lot of difficulty with, but it's a very simple question. So Jackie, where are you from?
Okay, I'm from Chicago.
Okay, nailed it.
Yes, got that one right. Sweating over here.
Okay, so you're from Chicago.
Yes.
Do you have the kind of stereotype of a Chicago accent?
I think I can. I feel like it's gotten weaker over the years. I've noticed that when I'm with my family and when I'm in Chicago for a period of time, it definitely gets stronger. I don't know if you noticed that about your accent as well, but
oh yeah.
I mean, I have a Chicago accent. Like if I can crank it up, I can really turn it on if people want me to. But I think by teaching, I try to teach with a little bit more of a neutral accent, if possible. Not completely changing my accent, but just not so strong. But when I'm with, my family and friends, it definitely comes out much stronger, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of like stereotypical Chicago accents, like idiomatic phrases? Because I'm not very familiar with the Chicago accent.
Okay, so I think what's a big giveaway are the O's. So, like, or for example, the word hot dog. I say hot dog. Hot dog. It's like almost like an A sound. Rock. Hard Rock Cafe. It's things like that. I remember when I was in high school, I did this like outdoor camping trip. I went to Oregon and I was with a bunch of people from the West Coast. And I remember I was telling people that there was a rock in my sleeping bag. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, your accent is so strong. And that was the first time I had ever been with people like from another state. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I was talking about like how my socks were wet. I'm like, I have to dry my socks. My socks are wet. They're like, oh my. And everyone was just laughing at my, or the book is on. I think the O's are the dead giveaway for being from the Midwest or specifically the Chicago area.
I find that so delightful.
It's not the most beautiful accent. And I always laugh when I get comments like, oh, you have the most beautiful accent. I'm like, only Brazilians, only foreigners would say that because I think other Americans do not find the Chicago accent very attractive.
I find all accents, I mean, I'm a language person, but all accents are fascinating.
Yeah.
But just so I'm clear about this, so you're telling me most of the time an O sound. So if I say rock, or hot dog, you would say, how do you say it?
Rock, hot dog, hot dog. Yeah, it's
just more open.
Yeah, yeah. And even like my name, Jackie, it's just like that is more exaggerated.
Yeah. It almost seems a little more similar to Brazilian Portuguese.
Oh,
like when you say Jackie, I would say Jackie. But when you really open your mouth and say Jackie, that almost sounds, even when you say yeah.
See, you turned it on.
That almost sounds like in Portuguese.
Right.
Like, pois é.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
Fascinating.
Now you know. Now you'll be able to identify the Chicagoans in your life.
Okay. So I said that was a difficult question, and it obviously was not for you. I think what I wanted to ask is, where do you consider home?
Oh, that is a good question. Honestly, I am one of those people that I feel at home almost everywhere that I'm at, but I also feel like I can't stay in the same place forever. It's a really weird thing. And maybe you can relate to this, Foster. I think some people can relate to this. But when I hear some people tell me, like, this is my forever home, like I came here and this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life and die, I'm like, I cannot relate to that. I don't think I've ever felt like that in any place. If anything, I feel very comfortable in almost every single place that I've lived in.
Yeah. And to interrupt really quick, there is a popular TV show in the US that my partner Alexia really enjoys called Forever Home. And it's like building these crazy houses for families. And the idea is they live there forever. And Alexia is like, oh, that's so sweet. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, they're going to stay there forever?
Sounds like a prison sentence. Like, no. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you understand. I knew you would understand. But like even for us here in Florida, like we have a beautiful house. We're very happy here. We probably will stay here for a while, mostly because of the kids. Like I don't want to move them all over the place because that is stressful for them. But if I didn't have children, I probably would be bouncing around a lot more. Like I love Europe. I studied abroad in Spain for 6 months and I went back several times because I just wanted to stay there longer. But I felt very at home.
Where did you study in Spain?
in Sevilla.
Oh,
Seville.
wow. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I don't know, like part of me, like I like feeling comfortable here. Like it's very, very comfortable being back in the US and living in Florida and the nice weather. But I feel like when I get too comfortable, I get that itch to, no, got to try something different. Don't get too comfortable.
Right.
I don't know.
I totally relate to you. I think I asked you that question because I don't have an answer to it.
Yeah.
But I believe my perspective nowadays is more just kind of like I have my different places in the world, which essentially are places that I've visited or lived in for a period of time and felt connected to.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Chicago, you have Florida. Where in Florida are you?
I'm in Orlando, near Orlando.
Okay.
So Florida, I lived in Iowa where I went to college. I lived in Spain. I lived in Brazil for 10 years. And even in Brazil, we lived in several different places. Just the República, the Brazilian frat house, lived there for a while. Then we moved to an apartment, a townhome. We bought our own apartment. Just all these different, but I enjoy moving and I enjoy like going to new places and kind of just discovering the new place and not just to travel. I like to like make my life there, like have my coffee shop and have my routine. And this is where I go to the grocery store and I get really excited about making these places my home. But I think it could be anywhere. Almost anywhere. Some places would be really difficult, but I think as long as you have, the people that you love with you, your animals, things like that, make any place feel like a home. But I don't have any attachment to like my physical house or a specific location. I think just Earth, planet Earth.
Global citizen.
Yes.
I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I can really relate. And that's probably one of the reasons why we are doing this podcast together.
Exactly. We connected on that level.
Jackie, I'm curious. I imagine most people listening to this podcast right now, they know you as Ask Jackie, the teacher that's most famous on YouTube.
I don't think I'm the most famous. There's a lot of other teachers.
No. I don't know if you're more famous on another platform that I don't know about. I'm
actually,
not on social media, so
I honestly don't know. I think YouTube, then Facebook, then Instagram. I guess would be where I have the most subscribers and followers. But I'm not sure either.
So, can you give a very condensed version of what your professional career has looked like?
Yeah. I mean, I started out as a Spanish teacher in Chicago, and then I went on to get my master's and I became a school counselor, and I worked as a school counselor for a while. And it was like you said, the existential crisis type of thing. It's like you spend your whole life working and studying and planning to get to that end goal. Like, I'm going to go to school, go to college, get my degree, get this job, and that's it. And then you get the job and you realize is this really it? Because if this is it, I don't know, something feels off. And like I mentioned in the other interview that I did with you guys, is I felt like I was wishing away my life in some ways. I was like counting down the days for the weekend, counting down the months for spring break, counting down the years for my retirement. And I was in my early 20s. I'm like, I'm wishing my life away. Like, this is crazy. And I always had a really strong pull, like an internal pull. I don't even know where it comes from because no one in my family speaks any other languages except for English. And most of my family members have never left Chicago. Like, everyone is there except for like a few people who had to leave for work reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the fact that I wanted to go abroad, and I was really interested in the Hispanic culture originally, because Portuguese was never an option in high school.
No.
I didn't know anybody from Brazil. I never had met anyone from Brazil. So I knew nothing about Brazil. But maybe if I had, I would have been more interested in it. But I decided, you know what? Life is short. I'm just going to go and see what happens. And I was also in a situation in which I could come back, which is easier than other people's situations.
Mm-hmm.
But I started teaching English. And then I started creating groups of students to teach from our apartment. And then it was just little by little. And then we rented out a room. And with the demand growing, I hired some more teachers to help me. And then eventually, after our school was running for about 5 or 6 years, is when I decided to enter the digital world. And that's when I created my course. Well, first it was the YouTube channel and the social media. And then I created the Ask Jackie online course. And I've had it now for about 4 or 5 years, I think. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years. And that's what I do now. I mean, I just create content and, talk with my students and do lives with them and answer their questions. And just, it's really amazing. I do love, I love what I do. And I'm very, very grateful for the job that I have, because I have had jobs in the past that I did not appreciate. But we have to have those experiences in order to know what is good when it does come to us.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You said something that I don't want to miss. You mentioned that you essentially are the only person from your family that has learned a foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same case for me.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how did that go? I don't know if you have siblings, but do your parents or extended family, do people understand it? Do they think it's strange?
I think they think it's really cool. At first, I mean, they were supportive of me studying Spanish in college, for example, and wanting to be a Spanish teacher. What I think a lot of people did not understand was my desire to live far away from them. And it wasn't that I was trying to get away from them or I was running away from a horrible situation. It wasn't that at all. It just was like a really strong interest of mine. It's like, why do you play guitar? It's like, I don't know. I just really enjoy it. I really like it. There's something that just pulls me to it. And that's exactly how I felt, not just studying a language to be able to teach it in Chicago. I wanted to experience the culture. I wanted to live in the country and just completely immerse myself in the lifestyle. And I think when you fall in love with not just the language, but the people and the culture and the food and the dance and the music, the whole experience of it is so much richer. And not everyone's going to understand that. Some people are a little bit more practical, like, I need to learn English in order to get this job. But I have zero interest in anything else related to it. And that's okay. But I was the opposite.
Yeah. Do you think it is... You say it's a lot more practical. Some people might be more practical. Like, I need to learn English to get this job.
Right.
Do you think that is actually a practical way to go about it? Because I tend to agree with you that learning a new language and culture and country, that's like one of the biggest things that you will do in your life.
Right.
Do you think you can do it without falling in love with the people and the places and the culture?
I mean, I think you can. I just think it's more difficult. And I think there is a difference in a person who speaks a language, but also like embodies that language, that culture, like understands the inside jokes, understands the gestures, understands like all that cultural baggage that people have, versus a person who learned to speak well from classes in a book without ever really immersing themselves in the culture. Sure, that other student could communicate well and may know how to speak enough to get by. And maybe they could even speak very well in a little bit more of a formal way, but they may miss out on some cultural cues, and they may misunderstand, even personal space or gestures that people make or jokes that people have, or there's so much more than just speaking a language to understanding a culture. And I think when you have that added to it, the experience is much better. And I think the long-term effects are much stronger too, because it has an emotional impact on you. It actually changes who you are in general. It's not just like this separate part of you. Like you see how other people live, how other people react, how other people raise their kids, how other people clean, eat. Like everything is so different. Everything is so different. I was like, wait, you guys are dumping water on the floor and then like using a squeegee to put it in the drain? Like, this is crazy. But it works. I mean, it works really well. It's like, wow, the houses are so clean. Why don't we do this? But it just opens your eyes to so much more than communicating. It's just different ways of living in general.
Yeah. I really like the word that you use, like embodiment. Like, do you feel like you have two different Jackies, like American Chicago Jackie and then Brazilian Jackie? Or does it feel like one person with two different parts? How does that manifest in you?
I feel like, I don't know if it's too different, but I do think like all of us have several different versions that get kind of pulled out at different times. For example, if you're in a formal situation or a business meeting, you're going to change the language, you're going to change your posture a little bit than if you're at a barbecue drinking beer with your friends. We all do this. It's not that we put on different masks, but just different versions of us come out at different times. And that could not necessarily be with whatever country you're in. It's like with different people that you're with. Some people you may feel that you shut down a little bit more. And other people, you really shine bright and you come out. It's kind of how they make you feel that energy you get off of them.
Yeah.
But
pro tip, you should probably stop hanging out with the people that make you feel like you shut down and hang out more with the people that make you shine.
Exactly. If the people that kind of suck you dry and make you feel like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Yeah, maybe spend less time with them. And like you said, hang out with those that bring out the best in you. And it should be an even exchange as well. You want to help people shine too. But I feel like I can adapt very well to several situations. I don't know if it's necessarily like a different me. I just can be me, but in whatever situation is necessary. And that's actually a really good skill, because we have to be adaptable in life in general. It was like, the Darwin's theory is basically, it's not the strongest that survive. It's those that are the most adaptable. And we have to adapt. We have to evolve as humans. We have to grow. Otherwise, we're going to be left in the Stone Age.
Yeah, this is proved by science, people.
Yes.
You heard it here first. Do you think that there are ways that people can practice to cultivate that skill of being more adaptable?
Yeah. I think if you notice yourself like resisting or judging or expecting things to be the way that you believe they should be, I think the first step is just notice that, like, I'm being a little judgy. I'm resisting. I'm expecting, this person to have the same reaction that I would have, and just kind of notice that and question it. Like, why? where is this coming from? And should I really be doing this? And then sometimes we can correct ourselves. I know one of my friends that was in Brazil with me, she was dating a guy from Rio. And I remember to this day, she told me about a conversation that she had with him. They were in a pharmacy, like the drugstores down there. Mm-hmm. And she was annoyed because she wanted the American products. Like she wanted specific products that she had been using in the States and she couldn't find them there. And she was kind of complaining about it. And he said to her, he's like, you're in Brazil. You need to try out new things, and do different things. And I would catch myself complaining about the long lines or the poor service. And I just reminded myself, like, this is a different country. I cannot have the same expectations that it's going to be the United States everywhere I go. And even with people, like people handle situations in a different way than I maybe would. And rather than judge them and say that's wrong and my way is right, it's just understand that it's very gray. And we all have to just be open-minded and understand that there's several ways to look at everything. And if we just do that little tiny step, it does help us to be more flexible and less resistant in these situations. But we have to want to be adaptable. You have to want it. Otherwise, you're just going to fight it and resist it and think everybody's wrong except for yourself.
Yeah.
That doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah. If you resist, it persists. That's a phrase I hear in meditation circles, I think.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep showing up until you finally let go a little bit.
Well, to put this in the context of language learning, I feel like that's one of the biggest obstacles is just resistance. Yes. Whether it be resisting to talk to people, to have conversations, to take your language to the next level. Do you have advice for how people can overcome that resistance, specifically in the context of improving a new language?
Yeah. And it happens a lot with language. I think people who maybe are more math-minded, possibly, want to organize everything in nice, neat little categories. So, for example, if they learn a rule and then there are exceptions to that rule, it can be very frustrating to that type of person. Or if there's a way you express a certain sentence in Portuguese, but the translation in English is completely different. There are people that are like, why? Why? Jackie, why? And sometimes there is a reason for it. And you can explain, well, this is the rule. This, whenever you want to express this idea in English, you use the structure. But it's very gray. And I think we have to accept that and not force things to be the exact same way as they are in Portuguese. And I think the process ends up being a lot better. And I have two children that are very different from each other. And I have one that is a resistor and one that is the most flexible adapter, whatever in the world. And it was so interesting with the two of them because I taught them English because we were living in Brazil. And my oldest one, he's the resistor. But he's great. I mean, he obviously has learned to adapt. But I would teach him something and he would argue with me because he didn't understand that there were two. I was trying to teach him another language. For example, I would say, Olha, Gabriel, sapo. Be like, oh no, I would say, look, Gabriel, a frog. And he would say, no, sapo. Like he would argue with me. I'm like, well, you're right. In Portuguese, you say sapo, but in English, it's a frog. And he just resisted. And it was definitely a harder journey for him. But once he understood, like, okay, it's just a different language. There's going to be two words for everything that I see. That's just how my life is going to be. It ended up being much easier for him. But with Leo, my youngest, anything I say, he'd be like, okay. And he would just accept it. And his learning process was so fast because he didn't resist it. He didn't question it. He didn't, fight it. And I think as learners, it's okay to question and to want to understand the rules and like, how can I apply this in future situations?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have to accept the differences and just accept them, and okay, that's it. So here I go. And especially with the anxiety around speaking, if people are really nervous and they're, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. That inner dialogue, you're telling yourself repeatedly that you can't do something. You have to really change that around so that it's more supportive.
You said so many interesting things. First, I think we should definitely do an entire episode about bilingual children. Like,
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The idea that you said, okay, then my son just kind of accepted that there has to be 2 words for everything.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a big thing to accept.
Yeah.
But also this idea of resistance and acceptance, because in general, as teachers, as educators, I think we want our students to be curious and ask
Exactly.
questions. But at the same time, there's like a certain level of acceptance that needs to be there.
Yeah. And it's true because especially we see nowadays, we don't want to raise like a bunch of easily manipulated sheep. We want people to be, just do what I say, follow me. We want people to question and to reflect and to create their own opinions about everything. I think that's incredibly important. But there are times with language or with other things that we learn that you have to understand, like, well, this is just how it is, and even with cultural differences, there's things you just can't force it. You can't force people to think the way you think or to do what you think is right. Like, everyone's going to have their own way of living and expressing. But it's kind of finding that balance between questioning with the intention of being able to understand in the future and being able to apply whatever knowledge you need to future situations, and accepting that there's going to be things that they're just that way. That's just the way people speak. That's just a phrase that's used. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking now when you put it in that perspective, like it seems like it's leaning more towards fluidity rather than fluency. Like I feel like a lot of people think fluency means perfection.
Yes.
But if you can just be like fluent in fluidity, like to be the ability to roll with it and accept, that's kind of like the meta skill.
Yeah.
But these are things I just wanted to put a pin in before, just so we could touch on them again in another episode. Jackie, I know we are hitting time.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you answering all of my weird questions.
Those are awesome questions. You asked the best ones.
I've learned a lot about you. I think our listeners have as well. And as always, would you like to leave our listeners with a small piece of homework?
Yes. So the homework I have for everybody listening is just to kind of reflect on in what areas of your life or even in language learning that you could be more adaptable, possibly. Because just like Charles Darwin said, it's not survival of the strongest or the fittest. It's the most adaptable that actually do the best. And we've noticed this with our own students and our own friends and family members. Like if you can roll with the situation, if you can be in a more like flow state, like Foster, you mentioned, the experience is so much better. And you don't suffer as much because you're not fighting it. And I'm not saying you have to just accept every single thing that comes your way, but just question a little bit more. So next time you hear something or you feel yourself like, fighting it, just question it. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's totally wrong and you don't agree with it, and that's okay. But if we just reflect, question it, and allow ourselves to maybe be a little bit more adaptable, I think that helps us with just every area in life.
I think that's beautiful. Can you perhaps provide a concrete example just so I can visualize it in my head?
Yeah. So let's say you have a job interview in English, okay, with an American company. And maybe you watched several YouTube videos and you talked to all these people and they told you, well, Americans, they don't hug, or you have to shake hands firmly, or they gave you a whole list of things that you have in your head so that you're well prepared. Because this is how it is in the States. Everybody's this way, that general stereotype. And let's say you show up at the interview and it's completely different. They're in jeans and a t-shirt and they hug you and it's just completely not what you expected. I think
if you're doing an interview for one of our companies,
it might be like that.
Yeah. No firm handshakes, lots of hugs, super chill.
Yeah, they answer the door in their flip-flops and they're having a good old time. But I think in that type of situation, rather than like resisting or panicking or freaking out, you can just adapt. Maybe take off your suit coat, unbutton your shirt a little bit, just whatever you need to do, just flow. Take off your shirt if that's the vibe. Who knows? But just be with that mindset of go with the flow, just be up, prepared. I think it's definitely important to be very prepared for, as much as we can be, but also open to whatever may happen. And if these surprises happen, rather than freak out about them, get excited and go flow with it, roll with it. And I think the experience will end up being much better.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that's a good homework assignment, but
no, fine.
We'll go with it.
An area in your life, something, a challenge, anything that comes up, and go with the flow. The reason we prepare is so we can go with the flow when things don't go the way we expect.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. Awesome.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Foster.
Great getting to know you a little bit better. Any last words?
No, I just, I like that we're leaving on this note, because now I just kind of have that in my mind, like go with the flow. Let's see what happens, and just kind of go throughout your day, open-minded and just seeing what unexpected things happen and kind of get excited about them rather than ignore them or freak out about them. So
exactly.
We'll see what happens.
Go with the flow. You don't know how to end a podcast episode. Just roll with it.
That's
okay.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, sweet people. We will see you in the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Improve Your English, Improve Your Life. It really is something very special that you are listening. It's amazing. So if you like what we do and you want to learn even more, you can receive free access to all of the homework assignments, worksheets, transcriptions, and a lot more resources on our website. Again, thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.